Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, let's take a look at what's going on in the current state of affairs right now in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. We see that Trump still assumes unconstitutional positions. He, to this day, was continuing to say that he needs to support the no fly, no buy, or else we cry bill. It's asinine what he's trying to do, because as I've mentioned on two of our most recent solo flight special editions, what that does, when there's no due process, when there's no hearing and there's no notice and connected with that hearing, then you've really got a problem. Because when you're dealing with a fundamental and inalienable God-given right, like the Second Amendment to keep and bear firearms, you have to have due process. That is an intrinsic part of the way the system works, because if we allow the government to start trampling upon those rights without due process, then it means that the government can decide what rights we have and what rights we don't have. And that's something that our founding fathers never intended for this government to have. It was a power that was never intended to be handed to them, but they want to double down on this because, as we have oftentimes reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, the Fabian socialists are all about power and control. They want to control the daily facets of our lives. They want to ensure that everything they do is within their grasp, within their power. And of course, they never back away from that. They never back away from that position because they think that they can fundamentally, drastically, diametrically change the United States, to irreparably harm the United States, to tear it apart at the seams. That has been their goal for the past century and a half. And they think right now, as I speak into this microphone, that they're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. That means that they are within reach of grabbing that. And we see that they tried to push it today in the Senate. They tried to push 4 proposals, one written by my own state senator, John Cornyn, who really should be ashamed of himself, but he has no sense of shame, so he's not going to be, to try and make it to where no fly, no buy, or we cry. And that's really what it comes down to, folks. They're going to cry. They're going to cry because they want to deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable rights, and we're not going to let them. They're going to cry because they think they have solutions when, in fact, they don't have any solutions whatsoever. You know, no fly, no buy, no cry. Here's a thought. No bill, no bull, not ever.
Yeah. Hey, guess what? I found the perfect remedy for this. And it starts with people like Alligator Lips Gretchen Carlson. You know, remember when she was, snapping a trap the other day about, oh, well, yeah, we don't, it's all about,
well,
you don't need.
You know what's great about her? She doesn't need to go buy alligator purses. She just has to
shed some skin, save it up, collect it, get a little bit of that decoupage glue and stuff, and put it all together. Look, Mom, macrame. What she needs to do, this is perfect because she's part of that, whole cry aspect. I'm going to cry. Here's an idea. Go into your little Foot Locker trunk from your Miss USA days, whip out your sash, and use it to dry your tears. And then, gag yourself with it. Because I'm tired of people like you and everybody else that wants to say, oh, well, you don't need an AR-15 for hunting. It's not about hunting.
It's not about needs.
No.
Since when is this about a need? It's about a right.
Right.
This is something that they always try and do. They always try and say, you don't need that, as if we are restricted to just what we need. No. We're the United States of America, for God's sake. Why should we be restricted to needs? We're so great because we were able to be entrepreneurial. We were able to conjure up these amazing new things. And why? Because we had a desire to be better than what we are, to be greater than what we are, to hand down to posterity these great freedoms and liberties that were bequeathed to us by our founding fathers, meaning handed down to us. And we see that what happens when we start to waffle on our convictions and on our principles is that we get people like the mafioso, quafioso, Donaldolf, Julius Caesar Trumpolini, who sits there and tries to push the gun ban. Why? This further heightens his ill-fitting nature with the party. He is not a conservative. In fact, he's giving conservatism a bad name. He doesn't care about conservatism. He only cares about himself. That's all he's ever cared about in his 70 years on this earth. And he did just have his birthday, a week or two ago. So now he's the oldest candidate to ever vie for the office, even older than Reagan was. And he is perhaps suffering from quaffmentia because he seems to think that running as a conservative means trampling upon the Second Amendment. I don't understand how that's possible when you consider that a conservative is preserving the law and the supreme law of the land pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2. What is known as the Supremacy Clause is none other than our United States Constitution. So maybe Trump needs to get that quaffmentia treated.
Well, he doesn't see any value in it, Randy, because he's never read the that's why he never bothered to read it. And he doesn't stop at the Second Amendment. He won't stop at the Second Amendment. We've seen him trample on First Amendment rights. We've seen him. Basically, we can even link this to the 13th Amendment. Remember a couple of weeks ago when he says, "I'm African American over there." I was like, really? So it was kind of like this Freudian slavery slip? I mean, come on. The guy is just... The guy is even... He's lied so much in his life that he believes his own lies. He knows they're lies, but even now he's starting to believe his own lies. It's like he has this giant stargazing quaffdom that is just set off like a damn insect bomb. You know those little foggers? It's like someone just shoved one into his ear and touched it off. What the hell's wrong with the guy?
Well, he thinks everything's negotiable. I guess that includes his sanity. I suppose he thinks his sanity is negotiable. But you know what's really not negotiable? Our fundamental and inalienable rights. You know, they were never up to be put on the bargaining table. And this is something we've been warning about here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, for the past 10 and a half months. Up to 11 months now, almost. And what it really comes down to is Trump is so high and mighty in his own quaffdom there in his mind that he thinks that quaffmentia won't affect it, that this dandruff whirlwind won't choke the life out of his movement. But we see now that his movement is really starting to flounder. It is really starting to have some trouble. And he only has to look in the mirror to find who to blame, but maybe he's like a quaff pyre in that he doesn't have a reflection.
I don't know, maybe Disney and Pixar Studios can create a new animated film called, Finding Trumpy or something. Who knows? This is just, it's beyond ridiculous. The guy is certifiable. I'm not any kind of mental health doctor or anything, but I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The guy has no care for anybody's rights. He does, like you mentioned, he only cares about himself. Randy, I don't even think he cares about himself. I think if it came down to him making money or him making love to the front end of a speeding dump truck on a freeway out in California during rush hour traffic.
What did that dump truck ever do to you? What did that dump truck ever do to you?
I think he would engage in coitus with the grill of that dump truck just to save his own money. I mean, the guy's a lunatic, an absolute lunatic. And no offense to any dump trucks out there or their owner operators, to be sure, but
or lunatics,
but it's become so redonkulous that this guy actually thinks he stands a snowball's chance in hell. I don't get it. His campaign is imploding. He fired Lewandowski or Dowski, whatever you pronounce his name. He got rid of him. We knew that was going to happen. We called that so. In fact,
wait until you hear the reason why.
We called for him to do it.
His daughter, Ivanki the donkey, because she does look like a donkey. Ivanki the donkey sat there and said, "Well, Daddy, if you don't get rid of him, I can't have nothings to do with the campaign no more." Except I have a feeling, Except I have a feeling that was all a bunch of bunk. I think that's a bunch of propaganda that's being peddled out there because he's floundering with women. Although we've been saying that for months and months and months, but hey, the Lion Trump-vidians, those great and wonderful, all-knowing Lion Trump-vidians, didn't want to listen.
Well, this is what it boils down to. This is absolutely what it boils down to. Just like any other coward that doesn't want to go down with his ship, he's going to cut loose all the dead weight so that he can stay afloat. That's what it is. His campaign is sinking like the Trump-tanic that it is. He's cutting loose all the dead weight, thinking it's going to prevent him from capsizing or quaff-sizing, whatever the case is. And he is too full of himself to even understand that he's taking on water because there's been so many holes punched in his campaign.
Well, yeah, when you run straight into a Quaffberg, that tends to happen.
It's just, but he just, we'll ditch this guy, and, maybe we'll give him a job helping building the wall, and, maybe he could do a comb over for me because my tiny little hands can't hold the comb, and whatever. He's cutting dead weight, and let's look at it this way. Let's go all the way back to when he started firing all of his ground staff, all of his ground campaigns in all the states where he won the primaries and the caucuses. All of those states, he got rid of all of his ground forces or his ground troops. He cut them loose. Dead weight. So, and this is just another instance of that. Lewandowski, how much you want to bet Manafort's next?
Depending. I think he can't go without Manafort right now. And, there's something to be said about this. He's approaching this thinking that he can run the nation like one of his little failed businesses. But I'm sorry, the United States of America is not Trump steaks. It can't afford to be put into such a hairy situation, pardon the pun. But we see that there is this undeniable narrative. And the way that he keeps trying to change the narrative, like a drop of a pen or a drop of a bad hairpiece, it's
drop of a hairpin.
It's not working. His gun ban position has already caused his nosedive in the polls to get worse. He just has not been improving, and his negatives grow by the day. And there's still a delegate battle that's about to be waged in Ohio.
Cincinnati.
Is it Cincinnati? Yeah.
Cincinnati.
They all sound the same up there and look the same. I'm sorry if you're from Ohio. I'm just it's going to be a battle. But it's, the odds are still stacked against us. But if we do not try and take this stance now, if we don't do a blessed thing, then failure is assured. And we cannot afford to do that. We could ill afford to do that right now when this nation's in the midst of an identity crisis coupled with a constitutional crisis, all set in motion a long time ago, but really, really accelerated by these disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. You just can't ignore the fact that these things are there, folks. And that's what Trump's trying to do. Trump is trying to stick a finger in the hole because he thinks that that's somehow going to stop the SS Trumpertanic from sinking, and it's just not going to.
No, and to make matters worse, Randy, with this whole anti-Second Amendment debacle that he's, lathering his silver spoon with and trying to spoon feed it to everybody else, the NRA, he's dismantling the NRA. At one point in time, the NRA actually was a viable organization. It had a lot of members. Still has a lot of members, but the memberships there seem to be dwindling. Now, I can't put all of that on Trump.
Yeah, I was about to say, the NRA has been doing this to themselves for quite some time. And then this LaPierre, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, and see what Trump's doing. You see, Trump is a vulture, is what he is.
Well, let's not insult vultures. They serve a purpose. Trump is a maggot.
Even maggots serve a good purpose, but
he's... but not him. He's a rotten one.
But he sees an opportunity to, again, he doesn't see any value in the Constitution, therefore he sees no value in our constitutional rights. So anything that is there to not adjudicate, but there to bolster up our rights or to defend our rights, to help our rights, to be advocates for our rights, he wants to dismantle it. And he sees a golden opportunity. Well, the NRA, they had this mighty wall with all those members, and the wall's coming down, so I'm going to rebuild the wall because I'm Trumpy Dumpty. Guess what, Trumpy Dumpty? This is what's going to happen to you. You're going to fall off that wall that you're building with bricks made from rainbow farting unicorns, and you're going to fall to pieces. Nobody's going to be able to put you back together, and everybody's going to point and laugh at you. But see, he's tearing down every single impetus of any organization or movement that is pro-Second Amendment, or was pro-Second Amendment. And like you mentioned, Wayne LaPierre and the NRA have been doing this to themselves for quite some time. Look at all the lawsuits that they've been involved in. As one in particular, the AB 962, I believe it was, the banning of internet sales of ammunition out there in California. They challenged it in court, and lo and behold, they lost. Why did they lose? Because they didn't do it right. And our first Air Marshal Nelson Ward wrote an amicus brief to it and said, nope, this is how you're supposed to do it. And guess what happened?
They ignored him.
Of course. The NRA ignored him. But the thing is, the amicus brief actually set things right.
Of course.
So, again, they're capitulating to the quaffsteria that's going on. They're latching on, and they're trying to play both sides of the fence. Speaking
he's
on
like
both sides of the
NATO. He's like a quaffnado. I mean,
and when you have these organizations capitulating to him and endorsing him, then he turns right around and is doing everything to destroy. Oh no, he doesn't really mean it that way. That's taken out of context. Crap.
Why is that always their Lamebrain excuse?
Because they have nothing else to stand on.
Care. It's that they don't care.
Yeah, they have nothing to stand on.
They should, because we can't ignore the damage he's doing to the conservative image. But, we've speculated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, as to whether he was a Democrat plant or not. And I think he really is. I think the great weight of the evidence clearly demonstrates beyond a shadow of the doubt that he is working for the Democrats. Why else would he, in late May of 2015, have that mysterious phone call with Billy Bob Thornton Clinton the First to plan out this little thing? Nobody knows what was actually discussed in that telephone call, but isn't it kind of convenient, or is that convenient, to try and discuss these things or have a discussion with Billy Bob Thornton Clinton the First before throwing your quaff into the ring, a month or two later? July, so 2 months later.
Well,
it's convenient. It's very convenient.
It falls right in line with the propaganda by the Fabian socialists. The best place to hide something that's going to be more detrimental to everything that you oppose is right out in plain sight. It falls right along scenes that the Fabians are the hell spawns of Satan themselves. They're akin to this, and it's like the old adage goes: the best trick that the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Well, guess what? The best trick that Trump ever pulled was convincing people that he was a conservative.
Of course. But it goes down the lines of what the Fabian socialists always do. Remember that their original iconography was that of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how Scripture described how Satan would pervert society.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Trump is trying to do. The Don Trumpolini, the mafioso quafioso, is sitting there trying to convince everyone that he is a conservative. This is why I've referred to him as the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives. He's playing this tune on his fife, and he's making it sound like he's going to make America great again. He's got perfect hair forever, and he's got smally hands, and therefore he can figure out things. No, he's not doing anything that's good for us. And that's why he doubles down on his agenda to tear apart anything that has to do with the Second Amendment. And remember, we warned that he supported the 2013 Dianne Frankenstein gun control bill, that so-called assault weapons ban.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, that's exactly the same line that the Democrats are running with now. But what's so fascinating is the director of the FBI said that he doesn't want terrorists put on this watch list to be prevented from purchasing firearms because it's going to alert them and they're going to go underground. Yet the Democrats don't care. They push for it anyway. So when they try and come out and say that this is about the health, safety, and well-being of the American people, you can know that that is just a full line of bovine excrement. The Democrats don't care. This is about power and control and manipulation. And the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media have given them this platform to run with it on. Well, we're sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of them trampling upon our fundamental and inalienable rights in this willy-nilly, nonchalant fashion.
Again, it's right out of the playbooks of the Fabian socialists. You know, it's all about the health of the people, the well-being of the people, blah blah blah. Why doesn't Trump just go ahead and print off a copy of Adolf Hitler's Enabling Act speech of 1933 and just read it? Have it translated into English and read it. You can even put a little bit of a New Yorkian spin on it. You know, just take out the U and put the U's in there, and talk about building a wall and. Wait a second, didn't Germany have a wall as well? I think they did. Yeah, how did that work out for them?
No, probably not all that well.
No, probably not that well, since it doesn't exist anymore.
The Atlantic Wall. Yeah. Parts of it still exist.
Yeah.
And didn't you know those Nazis were a lot of... bad litterers. I mean, when I was in Normandy back in 2001, we found Nike sandals there. Who would have ever thought the Germans were carrying Nike sandals?
It's amazing.
Isn't it, though? But we see that the Senate had this vote, and yet the Democrats went out and voted against these anti-gun bills. Why? Because the Republicans wrote them. It's as though we're in Bizarro World, because it was the Democrats that screeched and hollered and said, "No fly, no buy, or we cry." And so the Republicans did their greatest trick ever, what we've seen all throughout these disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. And that was roll over and play dead. Oh, yeah, Mitch the Throidle McConnell, he sure loves doing this. That's his speech. Translation, I'm just going to do everything that Obama wants, and we're going to ban guns because that's conservative, right?
It's just, again, we see this from the individuals, the frothing, little troglodytic, podunk posers. I'm a conservative. People like Jeff Sessions. Yeah, I'm a conservative down here in Alabama. No, you're not. Not in the least bit.
It really is amazing. It really is amazing what they try and do. And they're trying to convince us that, they're good at this? They're good for the American people? Joe Manchin, or what I like to call Joe Munchkin out of West Virginia there, when he was saying that due process was killing us, no there, little Munchkin. Due process is not killing us. Your anti-constitutional malarkey and nonsense is what's killing this country. And we're sick and tired of this. I cannot tell you how sick and tired I am of seeing these charlatans and these frauds, these hucksters try and deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. Who the hell are they to tell us what our rights are? They're no one. They don't have that ability. They don't have that authority. They weren't endowed with that. We, the people, are the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this country. And it's time we start remembering that. It's time we start going back to that. It's time we embrace that again, because obviously these jackwagons are not going to back off.
Well, here's the other thing. These 4 pieces of legislation, see, what that does is actually giving the Democrats ammunition to use against Trump. And these people, they don't understand. It's not only used to use against Trump, but it's also ammunition to be used against who? We the people. Because they're going to spin this around. They're going to say, Trump's going to come out and say, well, I'm disappointed in the Democrats because, they should have voted for this. We have to unify, solidarity, blah, blah, blah. And then what's going to happen. And I'm telling you right now, he comes out and condemns the Democrats for voting against this. And I'm actually glad the Democrats did this. Okay, it's about time they did something quasi-right. What should have happened was it should have never even been brought up to begin with.
Well,
okay?
Especially when you consider that the Second Amendment is quite clear.
Yeah. Now, here's where I'm going with this. If Trump comes out and condemns the Democrats, this is what Hillary Clinton's going to do. And I know this because this is exactly what I would do. And why do I say this? Because I know how she thinks. She's predictable. She'll come right out and say, Donald Trump is condemning them, the Democrats voting this down. He is condemning those Democrats supporting your constitutional rights. And why? Because Donald Trump never saw any value in the Constitution because he's never read it. These Democrats that voted this down, they care about your constitutional rights. Again, this goes right back to the Fabian mantra and the communist mantra of Roger Nash Baldwin that we talked about on our last joint episode. Mm-hmm. Using the Constitution to destroy the Constitution. They're going to play this up. They're going to use that as propaganda to get people to turn against Trump. And you know what? It will work.
Well, it's not hard to turn against Trump. This is why Trump's negatives are already so high. And they're only growing. And they're only going to continue to grow at an accelerated rate. And you see, when Trump is attacking rights, that's the one thing. They're going to try and say he's attacking the rights of the so-called Islamic people that are immigrating into the United States. It's all part of a narrative. The pushing open the libel laws so that we can go after the press more easily, to stifle the First Amendment, to ignore due process. And then he's got that thing where he said he'd bring back the Keystone XL pipeline if he got a little bit of the payoff on it, which would be a violation of the Fifth Amendment's prohibition against governmental
eminent domain. Yeah.
Eminent domain all over again. He's already got a bad track record with that. We see that these things just keep adding up. They keep forming layer after layer after layer, and it plays into the Fabian socialist agenda. It plays into their talking points perfectly. And the fact that the lying Trumpidians don't see that, they just close their eyes to it all. They've willfully put the blinders on because they don't want to see the truth. They can't handle the truth.
Yeah, but Trump.
Yeah, but Trump.
Yeah, but Trump. Yeah. That's all it is. That's all it is. I for the life of me, I can't understand why people they just can't see this. It's I had a conversation yesterday with an individual that will remain nameless. We'll just say he's somebody I've known pretty much all his life. And he asked me, he says, so you're going to vote for Trump? I said, no. Oh, so you're one of those never Trumpers? Well, not really. I'm, more, this is what I am. I'm an American citizen. That's what it boils down to. I'm an American. I care about my fundamental and inalienable rights endowed to me by God. I don't care who the candidate is. You're not going to infringe upon my rights. So the conversation kept going and going and going, and I brought up to him. I says, you have the right to life, and you can agree with me that the right to life is probably tantamount to all of the rights, even though they're all equal. But without life, you have no other rights. So that has to take first position. And it's the reason why it's written in the Fifth Amendment, life, liberty, and property. Without life, you cannot have liberty. And without liberty, you have no means of acquiring property. So therefore, since our rights are endowed to us by our Creator, God gives us life. He says, well, yeah. I said, so therefore, without life, you have no other rights. So since God gives you life, that means He also gives you the means of all the other rights, correct? Well, yeah. Well, this means that the Constitution is rooted in natural law.
Of course it is.
Now,
and the natural law, by its very nature, is timeless. And that's something that so many people don't understand. They want to try and say that it's this quaint, antiquated document. No, it's not. It's just as applicable today as it was 235 years ago, as God willing it will be 235 years from now. And the fact that people want to give up their liberties for this fleeting sense of security, it's just not going to work. That's what Benjamin Franklin warned us about.
Yeah.
And they just ignore it. I don't understand why they ignore it. I guess, again, it's if they're the Fabian socialists, it's because they loathe and despise everything that our Constitution stands for.
Yeah.
It's with the Lion Trumpidians, I don't think they can read it because it's not written in crown for them.
Yeah. Now, I love this guy to death. I really do. I love him to death. It's frustrating when I see individuals that are so intelligent and so smart, they get caught up in this frenzy. It's almost kind of like a flavor of the week at Baskin Robbins.
It's the herd mentality.
Yeah, it's the flavor of the week at Baskin Robbins. This week it's quaffsicles. So I just wish that there was a way to where individuals could come to the realization. And Randy, I don't think that's going to happen until people start really feeling the pain. They have to feel the pain. Pain is the ultimate teacher. Pain teaches us what to do and what not to do. So there's going to be pain coming on. We're headed straight for it. A long road of pain. And again, folks, it's like I've mentioned before, the beatings will continue until morale is improved. Until we, the people, unify together and have a complete working and understanding and fluent knowledge of our shared Constitution, we're going to keep suffering these slings and arrows, and we're all going to take our lumps and our bruises and scars. That's what keeps us driving on. But when we all come together and understand that, the people that want to inflict this stuff on us, all we have to do is tell them no, and they'll see the sheer force behind that two-letter, one-syllable word, no, and they won't even bat an eye about tucking tail and running away.
Well, and the GOP is certainly not going to care about what rights they trample upon because they become the Trump party, and we can shorten that to TP. Like Trump, they're willing to throw the Constitution under the bus. If they think that the Constitution is going to get in the way of their political narrative, then they're just going to throw it under the bus. They don't care. They don't care what harm it does. And that's a problem. We're seeing now that the two political parties are the flip faces of the same titular coin. They don't really have much difference between them. And sure, the Lion Trumpidians are going to rush out there and say there's plenty of difference and there's plenty of distance between the two parties because the Democrats don't want to admit that it's Islamo-fascist terrorism that's a problem. Well, Trump may talk about Islamo-fascism, but he goes and adopts the Democrat line. He's the one that pushed for the no fly, no buy, or we cry. Why is it that he would want to push for the no fly, no buy, or we cry? That I thought he was supposed to be bigly, strongly, the great guy, the warrior against political correctness. Apparently, he's not against political correctness. Apparently, he's just for whatever is there at the flavor of the minute. And you see, this is something that we've also warned about before on so many of our past episodes. It's that he is not who he claims to be. This has all been a deception, and we've tried. We have tried our damnedest to warn people of this, and yet the lion Trumpidians suffer from that acute ostrich syndrome where they shove their heads up their posterior because they don't want to listen to the truth. They don't want to see the light of liberty. But that's what that light is at the end of the tunnel, that the Fabian socialists think is the representation of their supposed victory. That's us, shining the light of liberty on them to burn them like the vampires they are.
Yeah, and see, here's the other thing. This whole thing, this no fly, no buy, or we cry thing, it's nothing more than a Trumper tantrum.
That's exactly what it is.
If you don't put legislation into place to where, if you don't get to buy guns because you're on a no-fly list, then we're gonna cry. We're just gonna throw ourselves onto the floor and kick our heels and bang and cry until we get our way.
Mm-hmm.
Trumper tantrum.
Of course it is. And now there's something interesting. There was a guy on ABC News, I believe it was, Mr. Carl or something like that.
Carlson, Tucker, is it Tucker?
No, that's Fox.
That's Fox?
Yeah.
All the same nowadays.
I know, but no, this was actually surprising. This reporter sat there and pushed Chris Murphy, that little communist from Connecticut, the Connecticut commie. He said, how is this going to stop any of it? Oh, well, it could have prevented it because he maybe couldn't have bought a gun. No, he was off the list. He was passed. He was certified. He was investigated, and it was decided that he was not a threat, and he was taken off the list. This wouldn't prevent anything. Well, it might, but it's the due process that's in the way. Here's a thought, Chris Murphy. Why don't you go straight to hell and take that little jackwad Joe Munchkin with you? Because if you don't understand what the due process clause is for, and if you think that that's getting in the way, then that means clearly you don't understand that it was intended to get in the way. It was intended to stop charlatans and totalitarians and wannabe potentates like you, little feckless fiends and weasels. I'm sick and tired of this charade where you, at every opportunity and every crisis, try to go after our fundamental and inalienable rights. Who in the hell gave you the power or authority to do that? I sure as hell didn't. Jeremy didn't. Our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, didn't. So maybe you should stop trying to encroach upon the fundamental and inalienable rights of the citizens and trying to bring this, what, you're going to join Trump and try and create a quaftopia? It's not going to work. It's just not. I don't want to be in the land of rainbows and dandruff showers. It's just not for me. It's not for a free, open, and honest society like that of the United States either. But of course, are you going to hear this from the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media? I'm going to let you in on a secret here, folks. You're just not going to, because they want quaftopia as well.
Yeah. It reminds me of something I saw earlier. Trey Gowdy questioning a gal in a Senate hearing, I think it is, congressional hearing of sorts, and he asked her. He says, "What process does the American people have to ensure that their rights are not infringed upon?" And she says, well, there's certain criteria. He says, no, let me clarify this something. He says, see, I'm only using half. The other half is actually called due. So you take due process. And he gave her the answer numerous times over and over.
Yeah, he telegraphed it to her.
Yeah, he was telegraphing it to her. And this ditz could not understand jack wad about anything. And she kept saying, well, ultimately, she says she didn't have an answer because, see, he kept grilling her on it. He says, what's stopping people from due process. He says, does this apply to any other right aside from the Second Amendment? How about the First Amendment, freedom of speech? You can't speak your mind or say what you need to say until you're removed from the list. How about this? How about you can't have a lawyer until you're removed from the list? You petition the government to be removed from the list, therefore then you can exercise your rights. And she was just like a deer in the headlights, as usual. And then he says, what other rights that are enumerated in the Constitution allow this to happen? Or can this happen to? Ultimately, she says, I don't have an answer for that.
Well, I do. It would happen to each and every one if we got rid of due process. You see,
Absolutely.
The Constitution cannot be taken apart. It cannot be applied in piecemeal fashion. You have to take it under the totality of the circumstances, the totality of the entire document. That's part of the natural law tenets. Because if you think about it, what really does the natural law come down to? The natural law is the natural order of things. It's the way things are naturally supposed to progress. And so you look at the formation of society. The fundamental building block of society is the family. That's what it was always intended to be. That is your first step to government. The familial unit, that nuclear family, that is government. And then it moves up to the municipals, and then to the county level, then to the state governments, then to the federal government, where it's supposed to be the most limited, because what is the most detached from the nuclear family, if not the federal government?
Right.
And that was so amazing, because our founding fathers intrinsically understood, with their infinite wisdom and foresight, that the best government is the one that the people exert the most control over. So that is the government that is best situated to handle whatever sort of particular problems are going to arise with that community. Because I can guarantee you some of the geographical problems that are going to occur in the state of Texas won't occur in Michigan. Part of it is our border with Mexico. Michigan may have to worry about, a maple syrup type of cartel up there in Canada.
The Maple Bandits.
But down here we have LMA and all of those other little fly-by-night South American drug cartels and gangs flooding across our border. So, yes, there are differences there, and yes, state governments need to be able to address that more so than the federal government, because they can allocate the resources to it better. But the problem is that the federal government has become this all-encompassing thing that it was never meant to be. It is starting to basically place the states in a subservient position that they were never intended to be in. And that has set things out of balance. In other words, the natural order has been disrupted. The natural law is being ignored. And Donald Trump is not going to be the solution to that. He's already said that he believes that the Federal Bureau of Land Management, Malarkey, and Manipulation should be left alone, and that all of the federal lands in the westernmost states, which is about 90% of the land out there, should remain in federal hands, because we want those lands to be great. That's the only word I can think of is great. It has nothing to do with private property ownership. You'd think that I, as a real estate developer, would understand private property, but no.
Hey, wait a second. Let's back up to the Keystone XL pipeline. Doesn't part of the Keystone pipeline actually go through some of those states?
Yeah.
Huh. Gee, I think I'm starting to see a little bit of a correlation here. He thinks that the BLM, well, we won't use any acronyms for that at the moment. Any new vernacular anyways. But he thinks that they should maintain control. I guess that kind of falls in line with, one of those three provisions he thinks that the government's obligations are for housing, education, and healthcare. The whole housing thing. Of course, you can't build houses unless you have land, and if the land's controlled by the government, then the government can create the housing, and then they're fulfilling their obligation to the American people. Bull. See, yak dung, that's what that is. But see, it's all tied in now. See, all these little snippets, all these little pieces of the puzzle that he's strewn throughout his whole campaign He's put them right out in plain sight. And in order to prevent people from putting the pieces of the puzzle together, he's quaff-boozled them with building a wall. Remember, I mentioned building a wall, the place goes nuts, and then we, encourage people to punch people in the face. I say I'll pay the legal fees, and then, we want people to bring them out on stretchers.
It makes you wonder just how he comes up with this crap. It makes you wonder where he comes up with it, because it really has no correlation with reality, none whatsoever. And I'm willing to go out on a limb here and say that it's from his hairpiece. His hairpiece. It's the all-controlling. It's the quaff crow chip.
Well, I'm willing to bet
a quaff crow chip.
I'm willing to bet that that's where Waldo's hiding. Nobody can find Waldo. I bet that's where Waldo's hiding.
That's because Carmen Sandiego killed Waldo earlier. And remember, Carmen Sandiego is probably the new Lewandowski. I think that's why Lewandowski was fired, because we need to find Carmen Quaff Diego.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that actually makes more sense than Trump actually having a logical idea. Because none of his ideas are logical. He certainly doesn't have any principles, but of course, in order to have a logical idea, you have to have some kind of principles to base that logical idea off of. Since he has no principles, most assuredly we know he has no constitutional principles. If someone could point them out, please do so.
Article non, section existent, clause 0.
Yes.
But that doesn't count.
No. Not to the Trumpidians. Well, the Constitution's 500 years old? No.
Last I checked, the United States of America is not 500. Right. That's a couple centuries off.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple and a half centuries off. So.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just that.
Yeah, but Trump.
Yeah, but go to hell. How's that?
Yeah.
It's just. I cannot for the life of me understand why it's so difficult for people to understand this. I mean, yet we know they've been, dazzled by the, flashing glitter of
quaff hands.
Yeah, the quaff hands, the spirit quaff hands, all this other stuff, and the shimmering lights and the sequins and all this other stuff, the spray on
Is
cans.
this a UQuaffo? I mean, is that what we're talking about here? A UQuaffo?
This is what happens.
Quaff object?
This is what happens when we allow ourselves to become detached from true reality. True reality being rooted in the fundamental and inalienable principles. And yeah, I'm actually going to say that. Fundamental and inalienable principles of our shared Constitution. Since it is rooted in natural law and our rights are endowed to us by our Creator, and the Constitution was divinely inspired from providence above, I think we could agree, Randy, that the principles of the Constitution are inalienable as well.
Of course they are. Because why? They're part of the natural law. The natural law is immutable. And that's what's so amazing about it. And it's so troubling that there are so many who just don't quite get that, or don't care to get that. And that's a lot of what we've seen with the Lion Trumpidians all throughout the primary process, and we're seeing it now that, we're about a month away, exactly a month away from the convention. And this is when Trump decides to fire Lewandowski, and already the branch Trumpidians are trying to spin, they're going to spin it. Remember how Sarah Quaylen there was saying, media heads are spinning, you betcha, go hosers. That really should be her head spinning. Her head spinning on a block. All of those sellouts, because as we see, Trump is trying to do everything in his power to sabotage his own campaign. He's trying to make it to where he's going to lose. And we said that he would do this, but because Cruz had suspended his campaign when he did, the timetable was moved up. Cruz made a calculated decision there because he realized that what made Trump basically shoot off like a quaff rocket was that he had to have somebody there to latch onto and tear into. Oh, it's Lion Cruz, Lion Cruz. I got smally brain and smally hands and maybe a bigly other appendage, but you know, as soon as he had to go back onto policy, because he clearly has no policy positions of his own, none that are based in logic, none that are certainly rooted in the conservative movement, we see that he was unable to do anything with it. He was unable to stand on his own. Why? Because he is this shallow, feckless, spineless weasel. He's a coward. Deep down, he's a coward. That's why he didn't want to debate Cruz. That's why he wanted to run away from Megwin Quaffley. It's why he had all of these little problems. And now he's going to go up against Hilda?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Seriously?
Good luck with that. Now, see, Randy, you and I would have no problem debating Hillary. We'd have no problem at all.
No, she's got probably worse quaffmentia than he does.
Yeah, but the thing is, this, again, there's a couple of factors here that separate her from the Quaff Commando. And one of the major factors is patience.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't have any patience. We've said he doesn't have any patience. We've pointed this out to people. He's brash. He says things, shoots right off the hip, and, yaks his little mouth all the time. He doesn't think before he speaks. But, see, he doesn't have anything to back up what he says. See, all Hillary's doing, she's just sitting back and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, letting him say all these things. And again, I think he's going to try and demonize the Democrats for voting this down, because he's going to want to win the hearts and the minds of the people that, the LGBT, STFU, WTF, LMAO, raffle lopters, and blah, 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 whatever the case is. He's going to want to try and win their votes. Why? Because, well, people are abandoning him. They're jumping ship.
Well, and firing Corey Lewin Quaffke there was, it's basically just rearranging the deck furniture on the SS Trumpertanic. Yeah. Because it's already struck the Quaffberg. It's going down.
Yep.
There's no stopping that. There's no denying that. Now, of course, the Lion Trumpidians are going to try and sit there and say, oh, well, it's, polls. You can't put much credit into them. But what was the one thing that they were always doing all throughout the primary process? Was it not, look at this poll, look at this poll?
Yeah.
And then they'd ignore it as soon as it would go against the Waffler.
Well, yeah, if it doesn't fit their narrative, they have no use for it. They just cast it aside. They treat it as dead weight.
Like the Fabian Socialist.
Yes.
Isn't that just like a Fabian Socialist or a graduate of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media? And, of course, how is Trump going to recover from all of this? He's fired Lewin Quaffke, who was the one that got him here. And what, he's going to go to Paul Manenquaff? That's not going to work.
Paul Manapart.
Part of man.
Yeah, what, and again, he's created all of these delusional scenarios, fed them to everybody, and going back to Hillary, again, if Trump demonizes the Democrats in the Senate for shooting these bills down in order to gain these votes, all Hillary has to say, just like I mentioned before, he is attacking individuals that are standing up for your rights. See, Hillary knows how to use the Constitution when it suits her, and she knows how to use it correctly. And when I say correctly, I mean she actually gets it right when she quotes it and applies it. Why? She's a trained lawyer.
Of course.
What is Trump? A brothel inheriting slumlord with, big hair. And by the way, the 1980s they want their hairspray back. Tell your wife to get rid of the spandex too. The Canadian Mounties need new uniforms.
Ew. I don't think they want that.
The point is, he has nothing. He had better grow another appendage or another lock of hair to stand on because he's got nothing. Absolutely nothing. He's going to fold like a cheap suit made in Mexico with his own little signature on there. When it comes to debating Hillary, she's going to eat him alive. And people keep saying, "Oh no, I think Trump is waiting for this." What's he going to do?
Trump may be waiting. Trump may be waiting, but it means that he's already forgotten everything because Trump cannot stay consistent. He's consistently inconsistent. That's one thing we've said over and over again on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. And the reason he's consistently inconsistent is he has no core values. He has none whatsoever. That's why he can sit there and go on to Twitter and quaff off about all of this stuff with the NRA. Oh, I endorse the NRA, but I'm going to go and join the no buy, no fly, we cry thing because, I built the tower and everybody loves my tower and look at my hair.
Yeah.
It really is that way. It's because he doesn't have anything that he believes in. As you said, he stated back in 2012 that he's never read the Constitution cover to cover because he never found any value in it. Well, if he's never found any value in it, then why is he running for the highest office in the land that's defined by the Constitution? And then let's take that a step further. Because everybody wants to say that he's part of this new Quaffio nationalist movement. How can he be a nationalist if you disregard or find no value in the only thing that defines the United States as a nation?
Yeah.
That would be the supreme law of the land, which pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 is what? The Constitution of the United States of America. This isn't rocket surgery. You don't need Dr. Ben, I'm a victim Carson to figure out this quaffspiracy. It's not that difficult. This quaffmire is not something that we can't overcome. You just run a comb through it, or preferably, in the case of Trump, run an electric buzz razor through it.
Yeah. But see, Randy, he is a nationalist. In the Fabian sense.
Yeah, so he's a national socialist.
Yes.
Like Hitler.
Yes. Great. So, and remember, we have evidence of this and proof of this. He wants the American Workers Union or the American Workers Labor Party or whatever the case it is. Really? See, Nazis. Oh, what's that an acronym for? National Socialist German Workers Party.
Yay.
Oh, wait, well, what was it that Karl Marx, that bulbous crap cave of a communist said? What did he always laud? Oh, the workers are going to rise up.
Yeah, the dictatorship of the proletariat.
Yeah.
That's what Trump wants to create. That's what all of these frothing
the quaffletariat.
Yes. Great. That's wonderful. Or is it the sanitarium? I'm not sure which.
Quaffetarium. It's the quaffetariat from the quaffetarium.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing is, though, the positions that he's taking are diametrically opposed to the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our Constitution. He is taking a position that is diametrically opposed to the hopes, dreams, aspirations, and future of the American people. Why? Because, as Alex de Tocqueville, or Alexis Tocqueville said, any flavor, any form, any facet of socialism is just New Age feudalism. It's just about controlling the daily facets of our lives. Why? Why is that necessary? Why is that something that we want to turn to and embrace? That makes no sense to me. Why is it that somebody like Vermont Senator Nerdface, join me, Sanders, I don't do quaff stuff unless it's a quaff sauce. I do like sauce, and if you get me some sauce, I'll be very happy, as long as somebody else pays for it. Why is it that he, a self-avowed socialist, was able to do as well as he did? How is it that we here, in this once thriving, flourishing, and dare I say vibrant representative republic and community of popular sovereigns, have allowed ourselves to think that somebody like that could be let anywhere near the reins of political power? It makes no sense whatsoever unless you recall as the great visionary Zygmunt Dobbs said in his magnus opus, Keynes at Harvard, that these nefarious, patient, just wickedly evil Fabian socialists have been working at this for the past 150 plus years. The past 150 plus years, they have been working at dismantling the societal fabric of the United States of America.
Something else that's trending now, this whole hashtag disarm hate falls right in line with this. Oh, disarm hate! Oh, disarm!
Oh, is that the Pocahontas Huffy?
Yeah.
They're standing there with rainbow bright, enjoyable wigwam sign.
Yeah. Someone throw her a wool blanket, please. just throw her a wool blanket
so she can get quaff pox.
Yeah. Have it infested with Trump's dandruff so she can get quaff pox. He's standing there with a rainbow flag. And then, disarm hate. You know what? Shut up. Just shut up. You have gone so far off the reservation.
Oh my God, that's a pun. That's punishment, folks.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Just shut the hell up. Go away. Go to hell. Do whatever the hell you have to do. All this, you want to disarm hate? Here's an idea. You want to disarm hate? How about we start killing Nazis? Hell, it worked great back in the 40s, the 30s and 40s. It was a novel concept.
That means she'd have to commit suicide.
Yeah. You want to get rid of the hate, get rid of the Fabianism, get rid of the Fabian socialists, stamp out their agenda. Because, see, guess what? The whole LGBT movement is part of the Fabian agenda.
No, it's about perverting society, about tearing down. Why would they push it? It's because, again, remember what I said earlier with respect to the family being the fundamental building block of society? That's how you attack society. That's how you begin to infest and infiltrate. You just, attack these things. And when you begin to unravel society, then they're going to pull on it. Kind of like that little wigwam Pocahontas dress she's wearing. What is she, the Slapaho tribe? I mean, I don't know. But it's really coming down to what she's going to try and do is just tear this nation apart. Why? Because everything about her is based on a lie. She realizes that the United States of America is set on some fundamental truths. We hold these truths to be, what, self-evident? That all Americans are going to go out and use Rainbow Bright to kill hate? No. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are what? Endowed with certain fundamental and unalienable rights? That chief among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Is this rocket surgery? Or is this, I don't know, natural law 101? Somebody get me Dr. Ben, I'm a Victim Carson. Maybe we can figure this out for the Hiawatha hussy.
See, this is the whole point with the LGBT, WSUF, EIEIO, the whole community there. They want to take that Fabian agenda of balkanization and diversionary tactics and run with it rather than, I don't know, here's a novel concept. How about exercising your constitutional rights and you want equality? How about preaching equality in the true sense that your rights are the exact same rights that I have enumerated in the Constitution? And there is nothing else outside of that that is considered to be a right. If it is not enumerated in the United States Constitution, it is not a right. Period. And I have not yet has anybody been able to show me anything that is not a specific item or a specific piece of property, a specific inanimate object or action that I cannot show them in the Constitution where that is a right or show where it is not a right.
Speaking of not being able to figure out what's a right and not. We know that the Supreme Court used the power of stare decisis to refuse to hear a case on a New York and Connecticut gun ban, assault weapons ban. And I hate that term. You know, that's one of those weasel words. That's one of those buzzwords that the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and all of their other little flunkies try and throw out so that we don't pay attention, so that we just stop thinking, that we just go and rawly emote, so that we're easily manipulated. So they want to sit there and they try and parse through the language and to try and say that scary gun must ban, not think, use logic. That the states can somehow trample upon the Second Amendment. They're contradictory in their own case.
Yeah.
They literally are contradictory in their own frickin' case.
Now here's the thing. Under the Supremacy Clause, anything contrary to the Constitution is notwithstanding. So their own ruling, the Second Circuit Court, and then the Supreme Court even not doing their job to hear the appellate case, guess what? That makes them illegitimate, does it not? Because it makes their rulings and their actions void of any standing whatsoever. Because it's contrary to the Constitution.
And, you know, anything that's based on a constitutional issue automatically has original jurisdiction in the Supreme Court.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing how that works. Amazing how that works. And amazing how they have just fallen on their laurels to such a degree that they don't care about that they don't seem to matter, you know, to think about that or to place much emphasis on it. And it's like that rumor that's been going around where people have been trying to say that Clarence Thomas may have been considering retiring. It's interesting because his wife said that's not true. Who is running around putting these rumors out? Who is running around trying to create all of this fear and distrust and weakness? I have a feeling it comes out of the Quaffertanic itself. But what we see is Trump is going to try and use this Connecticut and New York case that says that the states, much like the one in out of the Ninth Circuit that said that there is no constitutional right to conceal carry.
Yeah.
Funny, I thought it said the right to keep and bear firearms shall not be infringed.
Shall meaning must in legal terms.
Yeah. Yes. But no, they are trying to do all of this stuff. And get this, they try to apply intermediate scrutiny to a fundamental right. Under the Due Process Clause, both of them, the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, which applies to the states pursuant to Section 5 of the 14th Amendment. That's what is known as incorporation.
Yep.
The whole thing is the states cannot step upon these rights. The states cannot deny these rights, but they are. And it's supposed to be strict scrutiny if it is something provided for in the Constitution. Now, Jeremy, riddle me this. Does the Second Amendment mention a right to keep and bear firearms?
Well, yes, it does.
Isn't that amazing? So, does that mean that it should be afforded strict scrutiny because it's a fundamental and inalienable right contained in what's the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution called? The Bill of... No, it's the Bill of will obfuscate the truth, apparently.
Yeah. First of all, this case should have never even gone to any court, like you said, other than the Supreme Court. Other than the Supreme Court. And as far as Clarence Thomas retiring from the bench, I don't see that happening. I don't think in good conscience he could allow himself to do so. Not at this juncture in time. Not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent.
1,000 points of lighter instead of 1,000 pints.
Right. Yeah. So it comes down to the point of if we allow ourselves to be remain tolerant of this nonsensical drivel, then we're all going to have to share the blame equally when the country falls to pieces. Again, folks, the only tolerance I care about are the tolerances I use when I'm hand loading my ammunition so I don't blow my freaking face off or injure anybody else that happens to be enjoying the exercise of my Second Amendment rights.
Or their Second
Amendment rights. You want tolerance, you want equality. This is what these individuals like Jessica Jin, the Quaffahontas, Elizabeth Warren, the Quaff Commando. I built the wall. No, I'm going to run around and, building a wall. And shut up. You want tolerance. You want to preach unity. You want to preach equality. Remove your heads from your asses. Wise up, pick up a copy of the Constitution, and learn how to read. It's written to where a 5th grader can understand it. If you have a problem with the Constitution, if you have a problem with my rights, too bad. If they offend you, that's just that much more the greater for me. I'm glad. I love offending people. I'm not happy unless I piss somebody off.
But Jeremy, there's something to be said about people like Joe Munchkin and about people like Chris Murphy, who are just going to try and use the Constitution to destroy itself. You see, they're trying to think, and the way that if they had their way, they would try and argue that the 6th Amendment Supremacy Clause states that any law made supposedly in pursuance thereof, meaning of the Constitution, would be the supreme law of the land. And they would say, because the Constitution gives us the power to legislate, that then we can control every facet of the ability to keep and bear firearms, and therefore we should be able to ban it, except that that's ignoring the rest of the Constitution. That's a violation of the 9th Amendment, and that's one of the least used, least understood aspects of our supreme law.
It's violating the entire other half of the Supremacy Clause.
Of course it is.
Anything, thing being a singular word capitalized, meaning a pronoun which directly correlates to legislation, actions, ordinances, regulations, that is contrary to the Constitution, is notwithstanding, meaning void ab initio, it cannot exist. So they want to use that argument? Fine. And this is the whole thing. This is their agenda. It's like you mentioned before. They're henpecking certain parts of the Constitution, pulling it out, omitting the rest of it, because when you take a certain part of a clause or an article in the Constitution, and you only cite a certain section of it, and you ignore the rest of it, it completely changes the context of what you're citing.
And what that goes to is, again, it's
judicial
legal
review. That goes all the way back.
No. Legal construction 101.
Yeah.
You can't just read certain portions of the law. You have to read the law in its entirety. That's the only way that you can make binding sense out of the law. And that's the thing. When you start basically selectively enforcing aspects of the law, that's when you start to have problems. And we see with all of this type of balkanization, all of these seeds of dissent that have been sown in the body politic of the United States of America, it comes down to one thing. They're trying to replace the idea that the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men, and try and replace it with identity politics. That's what makes identity politics so dangerous. That's why cultural Marxism is such a rotten idea and has really no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. The reason that our Constitution is the longest running uninterrupted constitutional document in the scope and course of human events is because we are a nation of laws. It's because we apply that notion of equal protection under the law and due process under the law.
Yeah, and see, that whole thing points right back to where did all this begin. We can go back to with the Judiciary Acts and Marbury versus Madison, Fletcher v. Peck, all, with the Judiciary Acts, that actually they were good things. They kept the court in check. But you had Marbury versus Madison come along with judicial review, which allowed it allowed the courts to say, well, we're going to use this part of the Constitution to interpret this part of the Constitution so that we can get our ruling right in a roundabout way. That's what they were doing. They were piecing and parceling the Constitution out in order for them to legislate from the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Which
and
was
that was part of the problem with the Federalist Party. The Federalist Party really was the start of the modern Democrat Party.
Yeah, and
it was a statist party.
Essentially, Randy, I would make the argument that Marbury versus Madison, in its entirety, is a direct violation of the Ninth Amendment.
It is
a direct violation of the Ninth Amendment. Therefore, Marbury versus Madison has no standing as valid case.
No. Unfortunately, we see that that's been ignored by the legal community because of precedents. But what it really comes down to is there is this type of corrupt mentality that has set in. Yep. They think that they've carved out a special niche for themselves and that we just have to bow down at the altar of the almighty state. But that doesn't work. It doesn't propel us towards the type of goals that our founding fathers country some 235 plus years ago. We are standing at the crossroads of history where we can continue to go down this path of the status quo, which is just going to see the acceleration of the death spin that the United States of America is in as we speak into our microphones, or we can go back to the Constitution. This is why we were so adamant by saying throughout the primary process that the only litmus test that matters when trying to determine which candidate is best qualified to wield the reins of political power in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic is the Constitution. That is the only litmus test, the only decider that matters. Yet the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, the Lion Trumpidians, all of these other nefarious Fabian socialist forces ganged up and grouped together and took out the one candidate that was standing for the Constitution. Now, I'm sure they're going to try and say that I'm just butthurt or upset. No, I'm not just upset that Cruz lost. I'm upset that you fanatics turned your backs on the Constitution. I'm upset that we even have to have this conversation in the United States. I am upset that we are turning our backs on the supreme law of the land. Why? Because somebody liked the Quaff NATO on some reality TV show? Stop it!
Let me ask this question of all these Trump-Luddites and little jackbooted Quaff Mandos. How can you make America great again when you're turning your backs on the very thing that made it great to begin with and has maintained its greatness throughout its entirety? How can you do that? How is that possible? It's a little something to ponder, isn't it? So you want to make America quote-unquote great again, but yet you're turning your backs, you're thumbing your nose, casting aside, oh, the Constitution, it's an antiquated document. But yet, without the Constitution still being viable as the supreme law of the land, because last I checked, it's still in existence, and there has been no governmental overthrow of the Constitution or dissolution of it, dissolving it. So therefore,
it's still following it very well, but it has not been dismantled. It has not been removed. No. It is still in effect.
So if it's still in effect and it's antiquated, but see, without that Constitution, you would not be able to say the things that you do. And rest assured, both Randy and myself would be the first ones to stand up for your rights, to act like a bunch of rejects in what you do. Why? Because it's your constitutional right to vote how you want. It's your constitutional right to sing the praises of your, quaffgelic little face and smally hands. Your Oompa Trumpas there.
Trumpa-lumpa.
Trumpa-lumpa, whatever, yeah. But see, that's your right, and we will always support your right to do that. We may not agree with you. In fact, we more than likely completely and totally disagree with you. But at the end of the day, it is still your right.
Jeremy, it's sort of like what we said in the immediate aftermath of the Pulse gay nightclub shooting there in Orlando, Florida. We said we may not agree with them politically, but it didn't give these Islamo-fascist terrorists the right to snuff out their life.
To murder them. To take their lives unlawfully.
Right. And believe it or not, that was an act of war. That was an act of war against all of us as a Western society. But you see, again, the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media are wanting to paint this as some sort of identity politics case. They're wanting to once again sow the seeds of discontent and of divisiveness to pit American citizen against American citizen because they want to push forward with this Fabian socialist agenda. But to what end is that going to achieve? What is that going to do that will really benefit the American people? And I'll tell you right now, it's not going to benefit us at all. It's just going to push their agenda, which is all they care about. You notice they can never seem to divorce themselves from it because they don't want to. They don't care to get away from it. To them, it's what their entire existence and being is all about. And when you stop and think about it, when they engage in that sort of misconduct, it's designed to weaken us. That's intrinsically the heart of their message.
Well, it's disorderly conduct is what it is.
Sure.
When it boils down to it, people want to say, well, the laws have to apply. Well, let's start applying some laws. How about, disorderly conduct for allowing these individuals to do this? How about let's even take it to the fullest extent of the law. These individuals that want to sit here and blame guns and go after the gun store owner or the gun shop, the dealer that actually sold that firearm. I believe it was a 6-hour MCX.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So they want to go after the gun dealer who sold that firearm to this towel-wearing radical jihadist hell-bent on destroying human life, depriving people of their first and foremost right. Because without the right to life, you have nothing. If you do not have your life, you have nothing. No other rights are there because without life, you don't exist. Therefore, your other rights don't exist. They only exist when life is breathed into you. And
you see, that's part of the natural order. Again, that's part of natural law. And isn't it so amazing that these people, instead of, because, this is great too. Remember that with respect to the Obama regime, they tried to say that nobody really understood the true intent of Omar Mateen. Even though in that 911 call, he said, Allahu Akbar, and all that.
Durka Muhammad Jihad. Yeah.
But then Loretta Lynch and the rest of the Just Us department tried to redact what was there. And they said they did this as an act of transparency. Isn't that amazing? It's the exact and polar opposite of what they said that they were doing. And then they went ahead and released the rest of it because there was a lot of pressure applied to them by the gutless opposition party, and rightfully so. If we are talking about an attack on we the people, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, then we have a right to know what was exactly said. And this attempting to redact it, how stupid do they think we are? How stupid do they think we are? Did they really think that we wouldn't understand that they were trying to pull the cloth over our eyes?
It's just... I again, it's more of this Fabianism. Their narcissistic, self-serving, and self-loathing agenda. Because let's face it, the Fabians don't even care about themselves.
No.
They don't even care about themselves. If they don't have the modicum of sanity to care about themselves, how can anybody in any blue hell expect them to have any kind of care about them? Oh, we're going to get, welfare. We got to, Obama go get us on Obama phone. Really? Really? So you're sitting there with your hand out, waiting for your freebie, and they're going to pile your hands so full of freebies that it's going to drop you to your knees, and guess what's going to happen? That's where your life of servitude is going to begin. Mm-hmm. And you're going to serve on your knees, and then when the time comes when your rights are unmistakably being taken from you because they kick in your door and say, you no longer have the right to live, and they put a bullet in the back of your head, much like they did in China and Nazi Germany, Italy, Russia, and every other despotic region of the world that was run by tin pot dictators. Only at that point you're going to realize, oh crap, these people don't have my best interest in heart, but there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it because it's going to be too late.
But, they're going to live fat, dumb, and happy in this little utopian socialist wonderful thing. Pan Am
at Quaff Census.
Yeah. And bread and circuses, that really came in towards the end of the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
That's what pushed Rome over the edge. It's always the decadence. It's always the moral relativism. It's always these societal decay markers that set in right before the fall. And we are that close to seeing that happen here in the United States. And it's because of the vile corruption. It's because of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, refusing to stand up for what matters.
Because
the Constitution.
It's because people are tolerating it. It's intolerance of it. So the longer you tolerate individuals wanting to trample on your rights, the longer you tolerate them making you subjects to be pinned under their thumbs and then discarded with nothing but the pull of a trigger when you no longer serve their usefulness and their needs and wants. See, individuals that want to embrace that tolerance because it makes them feel equal to everybody else, that's all fine and dandy. That's up to you. That's your choice. In fact, that's your right to exhibit and act that way. But I'm going to tell you right now, I will never serve on my knees. I will die on my feet. I don't care what it takes. My country is not going by the wayside.
Well, our rights are too important. Everything that we stand for and represent in this country are too important.
Without them, we have nothing.
Yeah, well, yes, but what is it that makes us? What is it that unifies us? What is it that defines us, both as a nation and a people? It's the Constitution. That is the greatest social compact or contract ever devised by the hands of men, yet divinely inspired by providence above. That's not some small feat. That's not some just abstract notion that we ought to ignore. That is a quintessential part of the national character, heritage, spirit, and above all, identity of the American people. And the sooner that we realize that, the sooner that we stand by that, the sooner that we act upon that, the better off we'll be, because we are taking that step closer to recapturing our identity and everything that matters to us. But the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, all of these Fabian socialist charlatans and hucksters, they are engaging in this sort of misconduct for the very purpose of stripping and depriving us of all that matters. And why? Again, it's about divide and conquer. It's about filling up the golden palaces of little President Peel and Squeal himself and his daughters there, Malaria and Sharia. They have to have their special things. No, it's got to end. We have got to get back to a modicum of sanity in this country. And as we have oft-times reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, the Constitution is the key. That's why we want you to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared Constitution. Because then you also develop a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of your fundamental and inalienable rights. And you can stand up to people like the mafioso coiffioso who's having his little coiffer tantrum in the corner with dandruff just flying out in all directions and say, no, you cannot just take away our rights. You cannot just trample upon us. That's what we're here for, folks. We are dedicated to that. We are dedicated to ensuring that the United States of America remains the free representative republic that we know and love, and to ensure that it's handed down to posterity. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. I guarantee you she will not spread turmoil. She'll just pour you alcohol. Folks, as always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I've been joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. We want to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. Also, we invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have, either here at our YouTube page or our Google Plus page or our Facebook page. And on top of that, we invite you to follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle of @RadioAviationEX. One more time, folks, that's @RadioAviationEX. There you will find the departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, our Blogspot page that lists audio blogs and other pertinent points of information, and our Cafe Press account, which is also not in turmoil.
Well, of course it's not in turmoil. Why? Because, well, it's actually a great supreme line of products. Much like our United States Constitution being the supreme law of the land, our novelties there in our Cafe Press account are actually supreme novelties of the land. Why? Because, well, we have our first class passenger logo, and we have our traditional Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer logo. Now, folks, I'll tell you what, this is how it works. Much like with our supreme law of the land, we have the hashtag that we want to go viral. It needs to go viral. It must go viral. Hashtag 62 or fight. Now, I guarantee you, folks, you will enjoy these novelties, and if anybody tries to strip them away from you with, I don't know, eminent domain or false...
Use your shot glass.
And use your shot glass. I guarantee you that would actually be constituted and well within your rights under the Second Amendment. Trust me on this, I know. Even
and
James
the 21st
Madison.
Amendment.
And
enjoy
the
your 21st Amendment rights,
yes,
folks.
Yes.
See, we
and
finally found a good use for it.
And James Madison would actually agree with us on this. So, folks, please, if you would, do yourselves a favor and, embellish your lifestyles a little bit. Treat yourselves to some of our novelties and accessories there on the Cafe Press account.
And we will see you next time, folks. Do take care.